You know, when I turned 65, I thought I had life pretty much figured out. The big storms were behind me, or so I believed. My home felt safe, my savings gave me comfort, my friends were just a phone call away. I even had a quiet little routine I thought would carry me through the rest of my days. But one morning, I woke up and realized that everything I thought was permanent was gone. And when I say everything, I mean it. The house I'd lived in for decades was no longer mine. My savings, the money I'd spent a lifetime putting aside, had vanished. My closest companion, my partner through thick and thin, was no longer there to share my morning coffee. Even my health, which I'd always taken for granted, had begun to falter. It was as if the ground beneath me had been pulled away, and I was left standing in the middle of nowhere, wondering what had just happened. Have you ever had a moment like that? A moment where life doesn't just take one thing from you, but sweeps the whole table clean? If you have, you know the shock, the silence, the way your chest feels heavy, as if you're carrying a weight no one else can see. That morning, as I sat at my kitchen table, well, someone else's kitchen table by then, I found myself asking a question I had never truly considered. What do you do when the life you've spent decades building disappears overnight? Do you fight to get it all back? Do you curl up and let the loss swallow you? Or do you try to find something else entirely? This is not a story about giving up. It's about what I discovered on the other side of loss. It's about how I found a kind of peace I didn't even know I was missing. A peace that didn't come from having more, but from needing less. Over the next few minutes, I want to take you through that journey. Not just the pain of losing everything, but the strange and beautiful ways life offers us a second chance. And if you're in a season of loss right now, maybe, just maybe, you'll hear something here that helps you breathe a little easier tonight. Before everything changed, my life was ordinary in the best possible way. I had my routines, my little comforts. Mornings started with coffee on the porch. Afternoons might be spent reading the paper or tinkering in the garage. And evenings were quiet. Maybe a phone call with an old friend, maybe a walk around the neighborhood. I'd worked hard for decades, and retirement felt like a well-earned prize. My bills were paid, my home was warm, and my calendar had just enough activity to keep me busy without feeling rushed. There was a deep sense of safety, almost like I was finally standing in a harbor after years at sea. I honestly believed the biggest changes in my life were behind me. And I wasn't alone in that thinking. Take John, for example, a friend of mine who was 67. He told me once that he pictured his retirement as nothing but fishing trips, backyard barbecues, and watching his grandkids grow. But then, a sudden medical diagnosis wiped out his savings in less than a year. One day he was planning summer vacations, and the next he was figuring out how to downsize just to keep a roof over his head. Stories like John's weren't on my radar back then. I thought those kinds of upheavals happened to other people. Isn't that how we all think sometimes? That if we work hard, make smart choices, and take care of ourselves, we can lock in a stable, peaceful future? It's a comforting idea, but it's not guaranteed. Life doesn't send a warning before it changes everything. Looking back, I realized that comfort can be a kind of blindfold. I was so sure the ground beneath me was solid that I never thought about what I'd do if it gave way. I didn't have a plan for loss because I didn't think I'd need one. And maybe that's the tricky thing about life after 60. It feels like we've earned stability, but in truth, we're still just as vulnerable to change as we were in our 20s. The difference is the stakes feel higher now. We've got more history, more roots, and more to lose. It's strange how quickly life can turn. For me, it happened in what felt like the blink of an eye. One week, I was paying bills at the same kitchen table I'd sat at for years. The next, I was standing in that very room with a letter in my hand, realizing I could no longer afford to stay. My savings had been drained by a mix of medical costs and bad investments, and the safety net I thought I'd built had holes I didn't see until it was too late. I remember the light in the room that day, pale, winter sunlight coming through the blinds, making everything feel colder. I remember the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears, like it was trying to drown out the words on that page. My hands were trembling, not just from fear, but from disbelief. After all these years, after all the careful planning, how could this happen now? And it wasn't just the money. Around the same time, my health took a hit. The daily walks I loved became shorter, slower. Some mornings, I'd wake up with an ache that wasn't there the night before, and I started to wonder if my body was quietly keeping score of every decade I'd lived. I'm not the only one who's faced a moment like this. My friend Mary was 70 when a fire destroyed her home. She stood in the street that night, still in her slippers, watching flames erase the place where she'd raised her kids, celebrated birthdays, and planned holidays. Within weeks, she was living in a small rented apartment, surrounded by secondhand furniture, trying to rebuild not just her life, but her sense of self. That's the thing no one tells you. Starting over after 65 is not just possible, it's real and it's raw. It's standing in the middle of what's left, asking yourself, who am I now? And it's realizing that the answer to that question might be the most important thing you'll ever discover. In the weeks after it all came crashing down, I felt like I was living in a fog. Not the gentle morning kind that burns away with the sun. This was the heavy, disorienting kind where you can barely see your own hand in front of you. Every step felt uncertain, and no matter which way I turned, I couldn't find a clear path forward. The emotions came in waves. First, there was disbelief. I'd wake up thinking maybe I had misunderstood, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. Then reality would hit, and the grief would roll in, not just for the things I'd lost, but for the life I thought I'd have. Then came the anger, sharp and exhausting, followed closely by fear. Fear of the bills I couldn't pay, fear of being alone, fear of becoming irrelevant. It didn't just live in my head, it showed up in my body. I stopped sleeping through the night. My appetite disappeared, and the meals I did force down tasted like cardboard. Even the simplest tasks, like folding laundry or making coffee, felt like climbing a mountain. There were days I'd sit in my chair for hours, staring at nothing, my mind looping the same question over and over. What now? And here's the thing, people around me meant well. They'd say things like, "You're strong, you'll get through this." Society tells us that after a certain age, we should know how to handle loss, as if decades of living automatically make you immune to heartbreak. But that's not true. Pain doesn't care if you're 25 or 75. It demands to be felt. And pretending you're fine when you're not only makes the wound deeper. If you've ever been through a storm like this, you know there's no shortcut to calm seas. You have to stand in the rain for a while, let it soak through, and admit that you're cold and tired and lost. Only then can you start looking for shelter.
I used to think that peace only came after you solved your problems, after you rebuilt what was lost, replaced what was broken, and somehow stitched life back together again. But I learned that sometimes peace doesn't arrive as a grand solution. Sometimes it starts as something so small you almost miss it. For me, it came one quiet morning. I'd been having another sleepless night, tossing and turning until the early light slipped through the blinds. I gave up on rest, made myself a cup of coffee, and stepped outside. The air was crisp, with that faint smell of wet grass after a night of rain. I sat there, not thinking about my bills or my empty bank account, just listening. That's when I noticed it, the sound of birds. Not just one, but a chorus hidden somewhere in the trees, each note clear and unapologetically alive. For those few minutes, I wasn't the man who'd lost everything. I was simply here, breathing, existing, and it was enough. That small pocket of stillness didn't fix my life, but it reminded me that beauty still existed in it. I think of my friend Tom, who went through something similar at 66. His life had been turned upside down, and he didn't know where to begin. So he started doing one thing every morning, sitting on his porch, hands wrapped around a warm mug, listening to the birds wake up. He told me it didn't solve his problems, but it gave him the strength to face them. Maybe that's the real lesson. Peace doesn't always come from fixing everything. It often starts with noticing one thing that's still good, one sound, one face, one moment that reminds you the world hasn't completely gone dark. You don't have to see the whole path yet. You just need a single, steady step toward the light. There came a point when I realized I couldn't move forward while still clutching the pieces of my old life. For a long time, I kept thinking, if I just hold on to these things, maybe I can hold on to the way things used to be. But life doesn't work that way. The past is like water in your hands. No matter how tightly you grip it, it slips away. One Saturday, I decided to start clearing out the house. Not in a frantic, get rid of everything kind of way, but slowly, gently. I opened boxes that hadn't been touched in years. There were photo albums, letters, my late wife's favorite scarf, even a coffee mug with a little chip she refused to throw away. At first, each item felt like a wound reopening. But I tried something different. Instead of asking, why did this have to end? I whispered, thank you. Thank you for the love, the memories, the laughter we shared. It wasn't just about physical possessions.
Letting go meant closing certain chapters in my heart. The version of my life I had planned, the people who had hurt me, even forgiving myself for mistakes I'd made along the way. I think of it like clearing a garden that's overgrown. You don't rip out the flowers that bloomed, you make space for something new to grow. And that's the part people often misunderstand. Letting go isn't giving up. It's making room. It's saying, I'm ready for whatever life wants to plant next. It doesn't happen in a day. Some things you can release easily, others take time. But each time you set something down, your hands become a little freer to receive what's ahead. If you're holding on to a past that hurts to remember, maybe it's time to ask yourself, is it protecting you, or is it keeping you from the life you still have left to live? Finding a new anchor. When I first lost everything at 65, I thought time alone would heal me. I thought if I just waited long enough, the emptiness would somehow fade. But here's the truth I learned. Peace doesn't just show up at your doorstep like a friendly neighbor with a pie. It needs a home to live in. It needs something solid to hold on to. For me, that something came in the most unexpected way: a local senior walking group. At first, I joined because my doctor kept reminding me to keep moving. I imagined quiet, polite walks around the park, maybe exchanging a few words with strangers. Nothing life-changing. But that first morning, as the sun rose over the trees, I found myself surrounded by people who weren't just walking, they were living. There was Mary, 72, who carried a little notebook to jot down the birds she spotted. Frank, 68, who cracked the same terrible jokes every single week, and we laughed every single time. And then there was Angela, 74, who brought a thermos of coffee and insisted we all stop halfway to warm our hearts before continuing. Slowly, these walks became more than just exercise. They became a rhythm, a heartbeat I could rely on. And that's the thing about finding an anchor. It doesn't have to be something grand. For some, it's volunteering at the local library. For others, it's painting, gardening, or even starting a small morning ritual at home. The magic isn't in the activity itself. It's in how it gives your days shape, how it pulls you gently forward when you don't feel like moving. I often tell friends who feel lost, don't just wait for peace to find you. Build a place for it to stay. That place could be a group, a habit, or a faith practice. It's not about filling every minute with busyness, but about giving yourself something steady to hold on to when the waves come. Looking back, that walking group didn't just give me exercise, it gave me family. And maybe, just maybe, that's why peace finally decided to settle in my life. After losing everything at 65, I used to think security meant a steady income, a roof over my head that I owned outright, and enough savings in the bank to never worry again. But when all of that slipped through my fingers, I had to face a hard truth. Maybe security isn't about having more. Maybe it's about needing less. Take my friend George. He's 69 now. For decades, he lived in a big 2-story house with more rooms than he could use. a lawn that needed endless mowing, and utility bills that seemed to grow every month. After his wife passed, he realized most of the space was just empty. Empty rooms, empty closets, empty echoes. So one day, he did something bold. He sold the house, let go of most of his belongings, and bought a small cabin by the lake. No HOA fees, no endless repairs, just a quiet porch where he could drink his morning coffee while the sun came up. And you know what he told me? It was the best decision of my life. I didn't just downsize my home, I downsized my stress. I can relate to that. When I lost my job and my savings in the same year, I thought I'd never feel safe again. But little by little, I built a new kind of security, one that didn't depend on the stock market or the size of my paycheck. I learned to budget differently, to live simpler, to value the calm in my mind more than the numbers in my account. I found joy in things that cost nothing: a walk in the park, a good book, a homemade meal shared with a friend. Here's the truth. Real peace isn't about what you keep, it's about what you no longer need. When you stop chasing things you can lose, you start holding on to things you can't, like self-respect, gratitude, and peace of mind. If you've been feeling like your sense of security is slipping, maybe ask yourself, what am I carrying that I could let go of? Sometimes, the lighter you travel, the further you go. You know, when I lost everything at 65, I thought the only way forward was to pull myself together and do it alone. I didn't want to burden anyone with my problems. I told myself, you're strong enough. You've been through worse. But the truth? Strength isn't about standing alone. It's about letting others stand beside you. In those early months, the smallest connections kept me afloat. My neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, would stop by once a week with a plate of homemade banana bread. We'd sit at my kitchen table, sip coffee, and talk about nothing important: the weather, her grandkids, the price of eggs. But somehow, those little chats felt like someone was holding a candle for me when my world was dark. I also started going to a Tuesday night Bible study at the local church. I didn't know most of the people there at first, but they welcomed me like an old friend. Some weeks I didn't even say much. I just listened. And yet, I always left feeling lighter, like I'd been reminded I was part of something bigger than my pain. Even online connections surprised me. I joined a small Facebook group for folks navigating big life changes after 60. I thought it might be silly, but reading posts from people who truly understood what I was going through, it was like someone was speaking my own heart back to me. And here's what I've learned. People heal people. You don't need 100 friends. Sometimes one coffee a week with someone who sees you, really sees you, is enough to steady your soul. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we let others witness our journey, even if it's messy, even if it's slow. So if you're in that place right now, feeling like you've got nothing left, ask yourself, who's the one person you can reach out to this week? Maybe it's a neighbor, a cousin, or even an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. That one connection could could be the bridge between where you are and where you want to be.
You know, after I lost everything at 65, my home, my savings, the life I thought I'd keep until my last breath, there were mornings I didn't even want to get out of bed. The weight of loss can pin you down like a heavy blanket, and sometimes the hardest thing is to take that first breath in the morning and decide, okay, I'm still here. Let's see what today brings. That's why I started a simple daily habit, something I now call my peace practice. For me, it's not about grand gestures or big life changes. It's about small, steady steps that keep my heart calm no matter what storms are raging outside. My peace practice is this. Every morning, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. Just 3. Some days, it's something big, like my daughter's laugh on the phone last night. Other days, it's small, almost silly, like the smell of coffee or the way the sunlight hits my porch. This little habit began almost by accident. One morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table, feeling empty, and I grabbed an old notebook. I wrote down, coffee, my neighbor's wave, my old dog still wagging his tail. And you know what? Something shifted. My mind, which had been racing with worries, slowed down just enough for me to notice the good that was still here.
I've learned that peace isn't the absence of problems. It's the ability to find a soft spot to land inside yourself, even while problems are still knocking at your door. And these daily notes of gratitude are my way of building that soft spot. Over time, I've added other things. A short walk in the morning, a few deep breaths before I check my phone, tending to my little garden. They're like anchors, keeping me steady in the waves. If you're going through something heavy right now, maybe you could try your own peace practice. It doesn't have to be writing. Maybe it's watering your plants, saying a prayer, or taking your dog for a walk before the day really begins. The point isn't what you do. It's that you show up for yourself every single day, in small ways that remind you you're still here and there's still something worth noticing. Because the truth is, peace isn't found all at once. It's something you build little by little, morning by morning. Looking back now, I can honestly say that losing everything at 65 gave me gifts I never would have found otherwise. At the time, I thought my life was over, like the rug had been pulled out from under me. But with all the noise stripped away, I could finally see what truly mattered. Not the house, not the bank account, not the titles or the stuff I used to cling to. What mattered was the people who stood by me when there was nothing left to give them in return. What mattered was waking up each day with a purpose, even if it was something as small as calling a friend or making a cup of coffee just the way I like it. I also discovered a strength I didn't know I had. You think you know yourself after 6 decades, but it's only when life tests you that you meet the version of yourself who refuses to quit. I remember one morning standing in my tiny apartment, staring at the empty walls and thinking, well, it's just you and me now. And instead of feeling hopeless, I felt this quiet determination, like I was going to rebuild, not just my life, but my spirit. And here's the part I never expected. I started to find joy in the simplest things. Sitting on the porch with a cup of tea, listening to the rain, laughing at a silly joke with a neighbor. These weren't filler moments, they were the real treasure. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to us is just the doorway to the best chapter of our life. We just don't recognize it when we're standing in the rubble. So, if you're going through a loss right now, I want you to remember this. You might just be in the middle of your turning point, even if it feels like an ending. If you've made it this far with me, I want to leave you with something I've learned the hard way. Losing everything, whether it's your home, your job, your health, or the person you thought you couldn't live without, feels like the end of the story. But it isn't. It's just the part of the book where the pages are blank, waiting for you to write again. Peace. Well, I used to think it was something you stumbled upon by accident, like a lucky penny on the sidewalk. But now I see it differently. Peace is something you grow, like a garden. It starts with a tiny seed, maybe forgiveness, maybe gratitude. And then, little by little, you water it with small acts of kindness to yourself. And one day, you realize you've built a place inside you where storms can't touch. If you're standing at the edge of what feels like the end, please believe me, there is still a version of you waiting to live again. They may walk a little slower. They may carry a few scars, but they'll also be wiser, softer, and stronger than you've ever known. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to start over after losing something or everything? Share your story in the comments. You never know who might need to read it today. And if this message stirred something in you, pass it along. Maybe to a friend, a sibling, a neighbor, someone who needs a little light right now. You might just be the reason they choose to keep turning the page.